Hello, this is Kevin, and today we're going to go over the report King shares as must-have reports. So it was brought to me about wanting to do something to give people an idea of what reporting can do, what different reports we've kind of done in the past and so forth for different people. So this was kind of a rough challenge of, we've done hundreds of reports through the years and so forth, and each one's a little different. So I've kind of just tried to break these out into some different, I'm kind of starting with, let's pull that up, things that you already have. So all these first topics that I want to take a look at are topics that these reports are ones that you already own. It's a matter of knowing where they're at, how to get them loaded, and things of that nature. So they're broke off into two major categories to start with. So some of them are done right through the desktop, and other ones are based through Excel. So for desktop reports, one of the things I want to mention is any desktop reports are not module using. So for an example, if I go to job cost to pull up a job overview report or a profit report, it ties up a license of job cost. Any reports I do from desktop is free. So I can have everyone in the office going to desktop reports and not have to buy any more job cost licenses or AP licenses or project management licenses, as long as I can get it in desktop. And good desktop reports also put a lot of different information at people's fingertips without having to go run multiple reports. So the two reports that I've just kind of picked is, one of them is just kind of a controller financial summary, and the other one is more like a project manager, a very good power report to pull together a lot of job cost information together. So I'm going to bring my screen up, and let's bring up that. Up here at the top, you've got the different tabs. And what a lot of people don't realize is you can actually go up to these tabs and actually tell it that you want to add a report. Now, the location of all these reports, because most of these reports all are ones that everybody owns. The secret to finding those reports are everyone has a Timberline Office share. So the front of this might be different based on whatever your server name is and things like that. So, that first part will be a little bit different, but as long as you go to your server that's hosting your Sage, there'll be a Timberline Office folder. And I'm just going to kind of go back and take that out for a moment. There will be, this is what a lot of people have seen when they've done updates or looking for reports before. So it's a 9.5 folder. But the secret here is most reports are under accounting and under a report folder. These, for whatever reason, are hidden under documents and desktop. Home pages. And they've got some different trades here. A lot of the reports are very similar, so I'm just going to focus on the commercial construction. And I'm going to start with the controller financial summary here, for example. So if I open this up, these are crystal reports, so they can be modified in whatever fashion. So it'll take a little bit to load the crystal viewer in here. And there it goes. So once it's got the crystal viewer in here, there's a generate button to go off and generate the report. And just to make the report a little bit larger on the screen as it's cogitating here, coming up with a report, I'm just going to kind of take a look at, this is just my application screen, so I'm going to shut it down. This was just where the generate button was, so I'm going to close that down. It just makes everything a little bit bigger. So here's just kind of a rough example. So, I can see, in my case, my data was a little old, so everything I owe is over 120 days old. I can see my aging. I can see, open checks, deposits, withdrawals, just a real snapshot of different information. Now, what makes these desktop reports so very, very powerful is this is a sub-report, this is a sub-report, these are sub-reports. So, I can pull multiple information together. So one desktop report I did for a client was showing them something of the nature of, it showed the owner something that they could pull up and see what is all the cash that went out this week, what is all the billing that went out this week to figure out what cash is coming in, what's the different balances of some loans that they were interested in and so forth. So, at one report, I could see all that information instead of having to go to 2 or 3 different reports to pull it up. The other thing that make these reports so powerful is these are called on-demand reports at the top. So if I wanted to see, hey, where's our current job list and kind of the summary of where we're at on our jobs, this actually opened up a completely different report that shows me, something potentially different. So in this case here, it's showing me all my jobs, where we're at with the contracts, what's our anticipated cost, what's our anticipated profit, and so forth for some taught information of whatever the report's taught to do. So, if I want to see all the different, what's the outstanding open invoices we've got at this point in time. So, very quick that I didn't have to go to AP, I didn't have to go to open invoice register and things of that nature. You can actually design reports based on the person that's needing the data. So you can put a lot of different information together to pull that off. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to another one here. And this is probably the most powerful one in my mind for project managers and people running jobs for getting information. And let's see, that's still working. Now these tabs can actually be customized. So in the desktop class, we'll be talking about how to go through there. So that way you could have these different tabs already started off on yours. So they would have the reports that you like right off the bat. There's some of these tabs that maybe I don't normally use that you could actually have where, when it opened those up at startup. So you can kind of control some of that information. So here's the next one I want to take a look at. So with this one that everybody has, ask for a single job. I hit generate and it'll actually give me some information. So I'm going to say, a job number. I'm going to say generate. Now, what I have done is I've actually modified this same report for some clients where we've actually put in the project manager and built a project manager specific one. So Joe has one, Sue has one, Bill has one. So that way it's smart enough to just show their jobs. So all somebody has to do is come in and hit generate. It'll show them a list of all their jobs that they're currently flagged as a project manager on that they can see this information on. And there again, I'm going to close a couple of these down just to get a little bit more space. So at a very quick visual, I could see the original profit, revised profit, pending profit, where we at on our contract, how much approved contract changes, our current contract with our approves, where's my estimate budget at, where's my cost at, what percentage of the estimate have I spent. A lot of just very overline information about that job very quickly. If I'm running project manager or project management, I could see, how many correspondents are outstanding, how many are overdue. Up here at the top is on-demand reports again. So if I said like a cost code breakdown, this will actually show me for that job where we at for every single cost code, showing me, there again, the estimate, approved changes, total estimate, committed cost, job to date remaining. The report is smart enough to know what job I'm at. So when I start taking a look at other reports, show me an insurance log. So that way I could tell, where's everyone at on their insurance or things like that. I didn't have to go to project management. I didn't have to go to reports. I didn't have to say insurance log. I didn't have to put a condition in for that job. This report can be smart enough to pull all that information from one centralized report. So there again, AP. Let's go to open invoices. Let's put a filter on for just that one job. It did all that with a matter of one click that I didn't have to worry about doing all those manual things. So this is where I think that desktop reports are probably, one of the things that I really think that a lot of clients miss out on, that you can really, since you can customize what these different on-demand reports are and what this information is, a lot of people can get the information from one report without having to go jump through 4 or 5 different reports through a day to get information that they need. So that's why this made one of my, main ones that I really think are very critical to people, is all the information that can be at somebody's fingertips. The next ones were Excel-based reports that everyone has. So some of the main ones that kind of come up on that list that I think are important is under applications, down at the bottom, everybody that has, now there are some clients that may not see this, everybody that has 32-bit version of Office products, which is what Sage recommends on your machine, you will have it. If you have 64-bit version of Office, you may not see this option, but the system could be, loaded up with 32 without any, issues. It's a matter of just removing the 64 off and putting the 32 on. So one of the issues that a lot of people run into is GL, financials. So when I think about GL and financials, financial statement only lets me look at one period. Financial statements also only lets me look at current year. So these are basically Excel-based reports where I can tell it some information. So in my case, I'm going to go in here and let's say, and it can be previous years also, which is what I'm going to go back to in my case. I'm going to say 5/1/2015 is where the data is that I'm wanting to pull. And I'm going to say I want to go through 5/31/2015. So you can enter some sort of prompting information. And then when you hit refresh, that is going to come up and ask me for what company I want to use. It's going to have me log in with my credentials to make sure that I have rights to access whatever data. So this was something that through your security of ODBC, you can limit what people can see or not see within data. So right now this is going off to my GL and it's going to pull up basically a ledger sheet showing me each account and basically where my starting balance was, ending balance for that month was, some of that type of information. So at this point here, I'm going to start with these little buttons at the top. So as I look through here, I can see, account ledger with detail, my company, where's my company data folder at? What's my date range that I used on this particular case? These are basically kind of like drill down abilities. So if I looked at just one, it's just going to show my report totals all the way across the board. But if I look at two, there's each one of my accounts. If I looked at three, it would show me all the detail. Now in this case, I don't want all the detail. Maybe I just want the detail for cash. So that would actually show me every single transaction within that date range that hit that GL account. So it puts a lot of information at my fingertips when somebody's trying to go back through and showing me, what accounting date, what journal entry, what was the transaction description, what was the credit and debit amount and so forth along the way. So basically any different account that I've got going through the system, so maybe I want to look at my payables and so forth. There's a bunch of invoices and payments or something like that maybe went through there that I can kind of see, maybe my tax accounts and when certain things have hit. So just a very nice way to sometimes be able to get back to previous years. Since I could do a date range, maybe multiple periods at the same time to pull some of these ledgers together. So that's one of the reasons why this one kind of made the top list is, there again, a lot of information that people can get to that I've heard a lot of people like, well, with Sage, I can only, my financials show, one period, or I can't get to the detail when I look at financials or something of that nature. So this ledger report is just a very powerful way of being able to tap into, more information, bigger time ranges, things of that nature. So I'm just going to close that one down. Go back to my desktop. The other one that I think is really critical is cost to complete and a Sage 300 search. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the cost to complete next, and we'll take a quick look at it. And I'm going to say, no, I don't need instructions because instructions are just going to say I got to hit enable content to be able to use this report. And yes, this is trusted. So in this case here, I'm just going to go back and put in that same job number. As of date, so to cut off the transactions as of a particular date and so forth. And when I hit refresh, same thing, pick what company. Since I've already logged in once, it should go off and it'll skip the login in this particular case since I did not close Excel all the way down. So this is actually going out to 300. It's going to basically build me something that, a project manager or somebody in charge of overseeing a job and things like that, can get a lot of information at their fingertips inside of, maybe an Excel spreadsheet because they want to do some forecasting or what ifs or something of that nature. So this is going to go off and just pull kind of the same information, what's the contracts and how much commitments have I got done against the job, some of those type of things. So basically, same type of thing. So what company, what's my folder, what job, what information, who's the project manager, there's each one of my cost codes. There's my estimate, but they use these little summary things where I could say, my original plus approved is my revised. Here's what I've got committed on the job. Here's my cost to date on the job. Committed there again could kind of show me my original and what approved PO changes have I made and so forth. My cost to date. So there again, cost to date could be showing me things like what have we committed to invoicing so far? What's the balance to invoice so far? So it comes up with a little bit more accurate job to date than just straight cost. Here's a bucket where somebody could kind of forecast what they think the cost to complete would be. So I could sit there and play games with, throwing numbers out there and can kind of see, okay, what the cost to complete is and what my over and under billing might be or comments and so forth. And this is basically a spreadsheet that I could actually save out there, open up on a month by month basis or week by week and update information, type of thing. So, there's a lot of people that would like to kind of do some forecasting where when I dump a report out now, it's just on the paper. I can't interact with it that much. So I think that's why this one, in my mind, kind of made a lot of sense because that way it lets me, kind of do some forecasting of things and see what different totals might look like, where we're really at on the big picture of the, totals for the job and things like that when I'm doing some of that forecasting. Oops, let's stay in Excel. And the search. Enable. So the search report here this is one that takes, a fair amount of time to run because it does have a lot of information that they're pulling. If I go to and I think it's pulling stuff to begin with, so I'll have to wait on it here a moment. So what this report does that's kind of interesting is this report will let me put in a little bit of criteria of what are you looking for? And it will show me where that shows up in GL, job costs, property management, AP, AR, things of that nature. So this is fantastic for those people that, maybe I've got something out of balance where I'm chasing down a batch number that, hey, I see this batch in AP, I can't find that batch in in GL or something of that nature. Or somebody says, hey, I'm looking for that description of, what was that special widget? What did that widget cost us? Or something like that maybe I could put a description in and the system could go back and find, what invoice that was on or some information, those type of things. So in this part here, you could kind of tell it what modules to kind of go through and look for. So you can kind of interact and turn on and off, what pieces. And then down here, it's got, a lot of the different common fields that I could potentially search for in those different modules to pull up, that information on. So looks like it's still refreshing. Now, another thing is we're waiting on that to refresh and so forth. So I also had one client that they were wanting to put together some audit reports to have a lot of information outside of Sage. So it was kind of interesting because they were able to go in and do like accounting range for like whole months or whole years in previous years to, basically store all the different transactions or different information out. So, that could actually be some way that I could pull all the transactions out for a given, month, a given year. There again, maybe I'm looking for something that has a particular dollar amount or something of that nature, particular operator stamp. So if I think that, something happened with a particular operator, I can go back and chase, some particular entry down. What's the security warning on? Still looks like it's going. There we go. This is trusted. Okay, so let's say in this case here, maybe I'm looking at something that it tells me that I've got a batch 48 in the system. So I'm going to put in a batch number in here. I'm going to go ahead and hit search. And this will basically start going through, and it's going to look through, everything it can find as far as GL or AP or different modules looking for that particular batch. And like I said, it could be different vendors. It could be a particular job. Maybe I'm looking for all the invoices, of what invoices are showing up in AP and what invoices are showing up in job cost. Because, maybe I had some corruption or something happen where, I think that there's something missing or something don't look right. It can be a wonderful way of kind of proofing out data between multiple modules and so forth. I can kind of see it going through, to kind of give me a rough idea sometimes of where it's at. So that way we've kind of seen some of the different, I think I saw job cost transactions go by already. I probably should have turned off my property. So it's looking through my property management transactions at the moment, which I doubt if I have any for that batch. It's looking through my AP transactions. And AR. And must be looking for my journals for GL. And I probably should have turned off a couple of those modules since I know that this is primarily going to be probably GL and AP or job cost and AP, but that way you'll see kind of the full picture. So it's basically said that it found one entry in GL, it's found one entry in job cost, didn't find anything in any of the other modules. So, that's going to just kind of show you a recap of where it found. Now I could either click on the tabs down here, or if I click on this link, it'll take me there. So if I want to see where that batch was in GL, that batch is going to basically show me that was these particular transactions that hit was associated with all of that single batch. If I were to take a look at what was the other module that said it found it in job cost. So if I take a look at job cost, there's where that charge hit the job. So there again, it's just kind of a way of trying to make sure things are in balance. If something doesn't look right, or where's the other side of that entry, or did that actually make it to another module, or anything of that nature. It's just a nice way, if I don't know all the information sometimes, to go back and, hey, look for this description, show me everything in this accounting date, or things of that nature when I'm trying to put different pieces together. So that's one of the reasons why I think that made the top list to look at. Let's go ahead and close that down. And let's come back to this for a moment. So those were all the canned ones that basically you have already. On this next one, these are just ones that, I don't know, I find that they're a little bit unusual, that, just trying to take reporting to the next stage. So these all have some little characteristics that make them a little bit special in my mind, because they're a little bit more advanced than maybe some of the other reports that we've done through the years. So I've got basically a few of them are going to be done in Crystal, and a few of them are going to be done in Office Connector and so forth. Whoops, I don't want to go to that page yet. So let's bring this back up. And let's go back to the Sage Desktop. So what I've done in this is I have actually made me a favorites. So there again, if you don't know how to work with favorites, I'd highly recommend joining our session that we've got on desktop reports and so forth, or desktop and so forth. So under favorites, I've just created a must-have. So these are where I've kind of put all the ones that you're not necessarily going to have, but I've kind of put them all here to kind of remind me which ones I wanted to go through. So for this first one, I'm going to switch companies. So on this one, what was kind of interesting was the client that I started building this for initially was spending 2 to 3 days a month to put all their Illinois reports together for this particular, SBE 956 report. This allows me to put in a date range. And if I said all jobs, it would automatically for the whole month print out all the Illinois jobs all in one shot. So I don't have to necessarily look up what jobs did we do work in for that month or anything of that nature. So in my example here, I'm going to go back to 7/1 to 7/31. Now I don't want to wait on the report to run, so I am going to just put in one job number, so that way it'll just run one. The first time through, I'm going to say show employees no for an example. So I'm going to say preview here. So basically what this report is this is a report to show minority participation for the state. So basically it'll show, some of the state's branding and so forth. It'll show, my company name, maybe different information about, and this is just made up stuff, so this won't necessarily mean much to you. But in my case, is what I've got entered for my route or section or counties or contract numbers, my project number, name for it, and so forth. And these I don't think I'm filling out at the moment. So a couple people that I've done this for so far, we're not putting that in, but this will basically show me, total employees, what was minority, what the different minority breakdowns are, how many are different apprenticed or on-the-job trainees. So basically it just produces a whole entire form in one shot. If I take a look at the next page is basically where they separate their apprentice and on-job trainees totals, and then also which ones are veterans. The next section of the report goes off and shows the total hours. So it's almost the exact same thing, but it shows the total hours of each one of the different ethnic groups and things like that, and what their levels of training and things like that might be. And the third page is really nothing. It's just kind of their generic remarks and so forth. Now, one of the things that makes this report, I think, really kind of cool over other reports too, is this little setting that I put on here. So what this actually allows me to do is, it's probably not what I'm going to submit to the state, but it lets me confirm who is set up for what. So this is going to actually show me what employees were flagged as a foreman. What were they for? So that one I could tell was, Hispanic or Latino, or maybe that was white. So that way I could kind of tell, where did each person that hit that job show up in. And then it also does the same thing for hours. So if somebody's trying to proof out the reports a little bit or things of that nature, whoops, second page, third page. So there's where it's going to show, all the different breakdowns per hour based on people. So that's one of the reasons why I think this one made the top list in my mind too, is, that's pretty neat that I can actually have one report that I would actually submit, but actually tell a little bit different question, and it can show a bunch of different information for, more detail for reviewing the report. I'm going to go ahead and close that one down. I'm going to go back to my sample company. So this next report I just kind of threw together. It was kind of a mock-off of one that I've done for another client, but just to kind of get the idea across of, what it looks like and so forth. Let's see. Let's go ahead and select a job so we don't have to look at them all. And let's say print. So one of the things that I've got one client that really sat down and looked at reports and what people were looking for and trying to bring things to their attention. So that's what I kind of did. This is just kind of an example of kind of a mark off where, what this actually does is anytime the remaining budget gets within 10%, they're yellow. Anytime that the budget's over budget, it's red. So, at a quick glance, you can't help to notice, what are the cost codes that need work done and so forth, or need to be watched and so forth. So very quick to the eyes. So that's one of the things that it was kind of interesting working with this client when they first was doing some of these different reports, because they sat down and what exactly are you looking for? What does that report tell you? What do you need? So they were doing a lot of things where it just showed all the transactions that hit their jobs their week, and just flagged different cost codes that were getting close to over budget or over budget and different things of that nature. So that's one of the things that I thought was critical on that side. So that's pretty much what I kind of was looking at here, is just something about most clients don't use colors efficiently, I don't think. So keep that in the mind on some of your reports and so forth, as far as what are we really looking for, why do we use that report, trying to pop something with color to really see that information. This next report, I don't have enough data to actually show it. But I wanted to, there again, kind of push the envelope on what reports can do. So this client here is actually Drury Hotels. And one of the things that I found really interesting about this report when we worked on it with them was when they award someone contract to work on their projects, it is kind of cool because they have a lot of different information, like a package that they set up for somebody to send them this package of all this information about, here's your contract and here's your award letter and here's our job safety rules and things of that nature. So this report has a lot of different things in it for like award letter, just to say, hey, you've been awarded this job, this project and things like that, and a brief, comment about it and so forth. They've got some different award letters based on whether it's a Disney product or Disney property or regular and things like that. They got different contracts based on different states. So when they do work in North Carolina or Michigan or Florida or Texas and things like that, those all have different contracts based on whether they're a small job or regular job, different contracts. So it's kind of cool that one report can look at different things like what job it is or what dollar amount it is and things like that, and actually determine what contract to produce with. Then if I just take a look at like one of the contracts there, whatever the verbiage is to do it. So each one of these are actually a completely different form based on, some known nomenclature that are, lawyers wanted different information for different areas. I found it also interesting because a lot of people do subcontracts in the system, but I've never really seen anyone do, like, they also include, hey, here's our safety work rules, what our work hours are, all sorts of different information along with it. They also included things like safety sign-off sheets. So that way it goes through and talks about, different procedures that they follow and things of that nature. What they wanted for daily logs to be submitted to them, what they expect for lien waivers to be submitted to them on their jobs. There again, different lien waivers for different areas and so forth. What are their W-9 forms, so that way somebody can fill out a W-9 form to send back to them when they're working on their jobs. What their insurance requirements are, things of that nature. So, I've seen a lot of people do different pieces of this, but I've never really seen companies really pull that all together into one centralized area. So that's one of the things that really kind of, I think made this report pretty special, is the fact that, I don't have to sit there and do an award letter and then send out a contract and then send out something else for, our safety sheets and things of that nature. So very powerful in my mind. The next one here was a client that I worked with that basically one of the things that they wanted to do was they wanted to basically have, and I've kind of stripped down some of the detail to make it run a little bit faster, but they wanted to basically have where a project manager could have a spreadsheet that could actually have their jobs in here already and basically have a different tab for each job to be able to find out information about their job. So I'm going to go ahead and just load her up here with a couple jobs to get it going. So I'm going to say these are some job numbers. I'm going to paste them as values here, and I'm going to hit refresh. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to go to Sage and actually build out each one of these different tabs with this particular job's information, all in one shot. So that way This tab is kind of like a centralized tab where I could pull together all sorts of different numbers and things like that across, multiple jobs. But then when I want to see an actual specific job, I can get into the job specific information also. So we'll give it a second here to pull it. And like I said, this one was takes a little bit of time to run just because of the fact of, it's going through the transactions and the different cost codes associated with each jobs to build out each one of those tabs. So the more tabs that going across, the slower it did seem to get as we went through there. And come on. And one of the things that this report's also doing that, is what I think it's actually working on at the moment here is it's also got a detailed tab that lets me actually go back and look at every single transaction of every single job. So that way I can do any type of like data mining to go figure out, this dollar amount don't look right or something like that there, it got done. So this was just basically a summary, pulling it together. So if I take a look at like one of the jobs, it shows all the different cost codes. And one of the things kind of cool about this job too is they wanted to kind of see the progress of things. So, this is where it was at this particular date. There's where it was at that date, that week. So week by week, they have it to where it shows multiple weeks of where it was at in that point to kind of see the trend of, where things are heading on the job. Then they've got one that kind of pulls it together for the whole month or whole period of time and kind of where the balances are at and so forth. So that was kind of cool because, there again, most reports just show me that one particular, cutoff date or range where this one's actually showing me, I don't remember what it was, 4 or 5 different weeks at a time. So very powerful in that kind of being able to see a trend or where things are going. And then the other thing that made this report, I think, also pretty handy is, if somebody was going through here and try to figure out, how do we get this original, estimated budget for coordination for this job and so forth, I can go to the detail tab and this actually shows every single job. So if I come in here and say filter the one job I want, the one cost code that I want, I'm looking for anything that was an original estimate. That's how I came up with that dollar amount. So that way I could tell that for whatever reason, we've had multiple estimates come in there. So we've imported a couple from estimating. It looks like we've also, manually did some adjustments for some reason. If I wanted to kind of look at the cost, same type of thing. So if I said, let's look at the job costs and payroll costs, there's where the cost is coming in or how many hours have been put against this job, or units been entered against it and so forth. So there again, just kind of interesting because, really trying to customize it. I can get to a lot of different numbers or information without having to jump through, different reports and different hoops to do it. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of thought that was kind of, a neat little setup that we did to be able to pull that information together. So I said earlier that financial statements only lets me see one period of time, one period. So think about this. This was there again, just kind of a concept that we put together, and the client ended up kind of creating their own desktop that we did from here. Let's go and refresh this. So I can get my numbers back. So what makes this report so special was, think about if I could sit there and say, okay, here's my account ranges for income, or here's my account ranges for cost. This is actually doing a lookup command. Now this does require Office Connector GL Financials to do it, but GL Financials is kind of bizarre because it will actually allow you to write a formula that is smart enough to look at a date and figure out what year and what period to retrieve. So in this case here, you can see that this is pulling up all this different information versus this is pulling up a prior year's information. So that way I can kind of compare one year to another and look at it at a chart. So, this is kind of neat because GL Financials will let you look at, if you have used the system long enough, up to 10 years worth of monthly details or monthly totals and so forth on these accounts that could just be looked up in a spreadsheet. So, when somebody wants to sit there and look at, hey, here's where our income was so much better than the previous year and so forth, or, here's where our cost has been, coming over the revenue or things of that nature. So just kind of handy to be able to look at multiple information at the same time. So when people are doing things like, we do a lot with like GL's budgets. So somebody wants to see their actuals and their budgets, and they're again looking at it for more than one period. Office Connector and Financials is a place that can do that. So, I've done some people that have, one client we did a financials where they've got like, I don't remember what it was, 6 different departments. So that way with one spreadsheet, they refresh it and each tab is a separate department and does their profit and loss, statements for each particular department, all in one spreadsheet that, is very efficient to pull up. So those type of things are kind of what I wanted to head here, was just more thinking outside the box of, what types of things different reports can do that might open the, the mind up for it. The next ones I want to take a look at is I wanted to kind of throw a couple estimating ones out there just for, different thoughts. So I'm going to jump into estimating for a moment here. So one of the reports that I'm currently working on is a client that we just want to do a nicer looking proposal than some of the default reports. So if I take a look at reports and say more, if I have estimating plus or have estimating with advanced reporting, you can actually write crystal reports and add them to the menu. So I have had multiple clients where we have done things like proposals and things of that nature where, it's got all the different detail of what I want to possibly show and things like that in it. So I'm going to just kind of take a look at this one briefly and just kind of give you, kind of some rough example, because I thought this was an extremely nice looking, report that they've kind of come up with. So, basically it's just something that shows them, something about the project, something about the dollars and things of that nature. I can actually do some little what ifs. So I can say, well, in this job, I want to show them all their phase totals. So, maybe it'll show each phase and what their subtotals are, different things of that nature. So, when you start talking about estimating, it's a lot of people use the canned reports that, I don't do a whole bunch of report writing with estimating, but I've had a few that, they up the ante on doing some very nice looking things with, some of that estimating data. So that was probably one of the leading ones that I've really seen on this side, was just being able to show, different information in a quick glance. So, if there's things that graphics, fonts, that's the thing that Crystal Reports really outdoes, like Report Designer on, is in those type of avenues. The last piece that I want to kind of focus on is from the perspective of estimating still, but it fits for any data. So it could be the Sage 300 data, Sage 300 data, Sage 100 data. I believe that there's connections to, I know there's connections to Power BI for bid metrics for those that are doing bid days in bid metrics and so forth. You can do some analysis stuff. I believe there's links with it with the Sage Intact and so forth to be able to get to data. So what these are is dashboards of information. And what's really kind of interesting about Microsoft Power BI is the ease of putting conditions in and cross-relating information. So, when we build things, they've got all these little widgets here where I could drop a widget out there and then teach it what's going to be in that particular widget. And they have all sorts of pre-built, slide scale things. So I could just say, here's a particular range of date ranges that I want, and all sorts of little visualization things to automatically drop in here. So here's just something I kind of threw together years ago, kind of an example of one that, so this is showing every single estimate that I've been awarded in this particular company. So it's showing me, here's a contract amount for the life, how many contracts, what's the minimum, average, maximum. This window is basically showing me each one of the different estimators and by what year have we estimated the most work, or what work each estimator is estimated. This little section is kind of showing me, grocery stores, hospitals, kind of the project types or project classes, and so forth. This is actually the same information as this, just displayed differently. So I can kind of tell, this is year. So it's more, I don't remember what they called this little block, but it was something that, I can tell that we sure didn't do much in 2015 versus 2019. So, it really lets you kind of analyze all the different years and things like that. Pretty easy. Shows me what states those jobs fell into, and then all the detail behind it. So what I find is really amazing about this report, or this concept of, what you can really pull together, is how interactive it is. So if I'm looking at this and I see that we have done, maybe I want to see Brett, 2019, he's done all this work. So if I click on Brett, right here, you notice that Iowa went away. So for those $21 million worth of jobs, that was with 11 contracts, anywhere from, 200,000 to 11 million within these two states. Over here, it's really rough to see where the work was really being, or what types of projects were really being done in the 2019. But I find that this is a little easier to see. So that way I could tell, 11 million worth of retail stores, 3 million worth of grocery stores, things of that nature. And then down here kind of shows a summary of, here's the exact jobs that fell into that range. So it was interesting in my mind that you can actually interact and touch on one thing in one grid, and all the other grids can be effective of it. And if I just click somewhere else, it'll go back to show me all the data. So if I wanted to say, okay, what's all the projects we've done in Iowa? There's all the projects we've done in Iowa. And basically you can kind of tell what years or what estimators. So basically it looks like I've had a little bit in 2019, a little bit of 2016 down there and so forth. So you can kind of go back through and see different information with a matter of a click. So, that's why this kind of, I haven't done a bunch of reports with it. I've done a few with some people tapping into data for, the Sage 300 data, trying to pull together with it and things like that. But I think it's a very powerful opportunity to make some very interactive reports to get information. So that's one of the reasons why, that kind of hit one of my top reports that I thought. And let's go ahead then. And with that, that is the information that pretty much I had for today. So make sure to keep an eye out on your our Bangert users group for other classes coming around the board, and interactive way to communicate and drop questions and get answers, find out information, and so forth. And we appreciate your time. Thank you. And looks like we have no questions at this point, so we will